Eight Times recently reported that over 66,000 civil servants face scrutiny after being identified as beneficiaries of social grants they don't qualify for over the past year. An amount of 12 million has since been recovered. The identified workers are among nearly 180,000 who illegally received grants as at July last year. But as reported on News 24, there hasn't been any consequences for state employees who illegally obtained social grants. Joining us now to discuss this further and the consequences that will follow because of this matter of civil servants exploiting the system at SASSA is the spokesperson for SASSA, Paseka Letsatsi. Paseka, good evening. Good to have you once again tonight here on In Focus. It would look, if you read it, that 12 million has been recovered. It's good news in a sense that money is back in the fiscus, but you've got to then get to the root of how the system becomes exploited by members of SASSA, the very same people who work there, not even by outsiders.
No, good evening, TM, and thanks for having us. Look, it is good news that more than 12 million is back in the government coffers. But what we need to clarify is that these are not SASSA staff members, because an impression can be created that these people who were identified work for the South African Social Security Agency. They are not. They were basically found all over government department. It doesn't make it okay, TM. I think I must agree with you that the public servants who are working all over government department do not necessarily have to put their hands in the cookie jar. But there are certain things, TM, which we need to clarify. That out of 170, we did try to verify 63,000 of those particular beneficiaries, and around 3,000 of them, we managed to realize that they do not necessarily have to get the SASSA grant, the SASSA grant. But what we as well have to emphasize is the fact that we as the South African Social Security Agency, all that we can simply do is to identify, recover the money, and therefore responsible government department will have to take the matters further.
Now, are you saying that these are still people who are still in the employ of government, even after your investigation has revealed that for over a year they have literally been exploiting the system?
Look, I think these people, they work for governments, but we need to emphasize as well that not all of them were getting the grants legally. Some of them were getting, because it does not mean if you work TM, you do not necessarily qualify to get a grant. You can be a public servant, you can be employed, but the means test, if you apply for a foster care grant, for an example, you qualify to get a foster care grant. And some of those people who are employed by government, some of them were all contract workers for about 3 months. Some of them were part of the EPWP program. I think you might have been aware that there were some strikes or some protests which took place in the Northwest, especially by the EPWPs. So when you say you are part of government, it does not necessarily disqualify you from applying for this particular grant. Hence, after a very vigorous investigation, some of them were discovered they actually qualified to get the grant. But I agree with you, TM, that the least we can do is to identify you, flag you, and inform the sister department or other government entities that a particular person is getting a grant illegally, and it is incumbent upon that department to take decision about you. Yeah. But secondly, all what we do as well is to take the file to the law enforcement agencies to make sure that an investigation is conducted and arrest and prosecution take place. But you can understand, TM, and I think everybody must just understand our situation, that our mandate ends somewhere. We can't go and instruct the police that they must arrest you. We can give them an information, and following their processes, then they'll be able to implement the arrest. We can't also go and tell government departments that we are instructing you as SASSA that you must expel this person. The only thing that we can do is to identify that you were getting a government grant illegally, and we have this information, and we can then give it to that relevant authority or department or entity to take an action on it.
Yeah. These layers, though, Paseka, you'd agree that it makes this situation a little bit more complex, right? Because, for example, the social relief of distress grant is very clear. You say if you're earning any kind of money from government, whether be it NSFAS, whether be it EWP, whether be it a social grant of any sort, you do not qualify for that. But you're saying you could be working for government but yet qualify for certain other grants. How does that criteria get assessed and vetted out?
No, thanks for that question, Thabo. I think let me just separate the two. There is a mainstream social grant which anybody is free to apply for, but obviously be taken through the needs test. There is a 350 COVID-19 grant which was administered under the National State of Disaster and which is being administered now under social assistance. So these grants which we are referring to are not related to the 350, but it's your normal old age grant, your normal child support grant, where we have 170,000 people who were picked up by the AG. That some of them, they were appearing on the PESA. It's the number which, obviously, when you are employed by government, it's given to you so that we know that we can identify you as a government employee. So we need to separate the two and not basically conflict them or confuse them. It is people who are basically getting your normal social grants. It's not the 350 TM. And I think if we have the statistics about the 350, we will definitely share them with you. But I just made an example, now, that if you, for an example, I'm working and I happen to apply for a foster care, I would definitely be taken through a mistake and I will qualify because I have fostered a child under my care. So in some instances, it is allowed and the law allows for that. So these are some of the people which we found in that particular pool. Hence, out of all that number, there are those who were picked up, they basically qualify to get the social grant because we only did 63,000 who were able to complete the review. And only 3,266, I think, were found to be in the wrong. But it does not mean that we have completed the process of checking each and every person. We are going to do that, but I can assure you, TM, it's a very tedious process. It can take 9 months just to basically make a review processes and so on. But we are on track. Those who are found to be in the wrong will definitely be followed. And as the South African Social Security agents, will definitely make sure that we recoup that which is supposed to go back to the fiscus.
Yeah. So are you saying the 12 million that has been recouped from those 3,200 or so?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the 12.6 million was recouped from 3,268 people who were found to have gotten this money wrongfully so. But obviously, out of that, we had done 63,000 basically just to check 63,000 of them, but we still have about 90,000 or so that we still have to check. But out of the 12 million, the positive part of it is that the 12 million that we have, it's basically what has come back to the fiscus. And I'm saying the disadvantage about it, and TM, and I think I must clarify it so that it does not go out to the public wrongly so, and people misinterpret the information. These are not SASSA employees. Not even a single SASSA employee was found to be part of this number, which I have just given it to you now. So these are part of the public service. Hence, I said at some point our mandate, or basically our hands are tied behind our back, because all that we can simply do is to identify you, follow processes, recoup money, inform the government department. But obviously, accounting authorities of those various departments and entities have to act on you, even the information which we give to the police for them to be able to make the investigation. All that we can do, our mandate will end when we give them a file and say these people were found to have been defrauding the state, and it ends there. All what we can simply do on our weekly meetings or monthly meetings is to basically ask the law enforcement agencies in terms of the processes of them investigating.
Yeah.
But we can't sit on top of the heads of the police and instruct them that they must go.
But I mean, for example, I give an example of the NSFAS case, which is very popular now. 10 million rands was deposited somewhat, we still don't know how, into a particular student's account, right? That case, I know NSFAS says they didn't open the case. I think it was the implementing agent that opened a case against the student, which went into court, and she was found guilty, and so on and so forth. So are you saying you as SASSA, you are not going to open cases on those 3,200? Who should?
No. That's not what I'm saying, TM. That's why I wanted to be as slow as possible so that I don't get misinterpreted. When we find out that this number of people have defrauded the organization, we can only do two things. We basically inform the department concerned, but obviously there are obviously numbers which we will definitely take to the South African Police Services, which we have done on our part. All I'm saying is that once we give the fine to the SAPS and the information about an individual who has committed fraud, our mandate ends there.
All right.
We can only get the information from the SAPS on the meetings which we have with them to basically get an update in terms of the processes and so on. That's all I'm saying.
So for clarity, once again, you have notified the South African Police Service, not on all the cases, certainly, on some of those cases. The others you've reported to the relevant departments where those particular individuals are currently employed, and you're expecting those departments to act on that.
Definitely, TM, we've done that. And we have meetings with the SAPS. Our fraud management unit, they do have meetings with them. They get reports in terms of progress. We also get progress from government entities and government department in terms of their processes of how they are dealing with certain individuals. But unfortunately, TM, I'm just saying we are interested because we have defrauded SASSA. We are basically interested in terms of finding out what is happening. But we can as well get information from the relevant accounting authorities.
Okay. Is this an oversight on your part as SASSA, as far as your systems are concerned, that needs to be tightened up?
No, they have. You're quite right. We need to tighten up certain things, which we have done, by the way. And I'm saying in some instances, TM, this out of 60,000 verification process, some of them, yes, they are employed, but that does not mean they do not qualify. And unfortunately, the difference between me and you is that I would know that this person, as much as he or she is employed, qualifies for a foster care grant. But you, as a law enforcement agency, or as to pick it up from the AGSA, you might not be privy to that information until I explain it to you that if you are employed by government, it doesn't mean you cannot apply for a grant. In this case, foster care, which I continuously raise. So our system is such that they are able to pick up on all those things. But you know, TM, the truth of the matter is that while you are trying to make sure that the system is watertight, there are those people who attempt to defraud whatever system, especially where there is money involved. We'll definitely have people who will try their luck to make sure that they defraud the state, they defraud whatever financial institution. However, it is our responsibility as an organization to make sure that we pick them up and an appropriate action is taken, so that we teach people a lesson that if you put your hand into the cookie jar or if you defraud the state, you will definitely be followed up, be arrested, and be thrown into jail. So it is our interest to make sure that each and every person who tries to go through and abuse the system, we follow up on them and we make sure that they get arrested.